Hello, everyone. Sorry, we've had a little bit of a misunderstanding on the invite. So I think some people are on another Teams meeting and might be joining a little bit later, but we didn't want to keep people waiting for any longer on this Teams meeting. Welcome. I'm very excited about the agenda for today, but I did want to call out before I introduce Erin, just a mention of the prayers and thoughts we have for our colleagues in India. Many of those people for North American Vent and North America Frog, there's a number of people in India working with us. And even as springtime in North America, and vaccinations are going well, and people are coming back to some degree of normality, let's not forget that in another part of the world, people are suffering, and people are really trying to cope with something quite awful. And certainly Capgemini as a company and North American Ven is doing what we can do to help people, whether it's money or getting them the kind of help they need medically and so forth. But just our thoughts and prayers to those that are in a different place and having a different experience right now with COVID. Moving from that, I mean, we have been through such a long journey in the last 14 months between COVID, between the fact that we've all been working incredibly hard and doing great things for our clients, that sometimes we lose track of taking care of ourselves individually and as teams. And so the purpose of to sort of celebrate, if you will, Wellness Month, and also just to give you some tools, hopefully, to deal with the kind of stress you feel while we still are in a somewhat isolated and fairly intense environment, both in terms of work and family. We thought it would be helpful to introduce you to some methodologies and approaches that could help you cope, and hopefully more than cope, help you thrive. Now, I just met Erin yesterday for the first time, and I think some of you are aware of the fact that I'm a little bit of a metaphysical person myself and have a novel that's out and kind of around this topic. So I kind of felt like I met a kindred spirit here from the moment that I got on the screen with Erin. And I'm very excited. I didn't hear what she's going to present today. We just talked about the overall what she's been doing. She has a very interesting story, which I'm sure is just beginning in her life. And so rather than try to introduce Erin, I'll let her introduce herself, and then hopefully you'll find what her point of view and what she's tools that she's proposing that people use will be helpful to you as we both cope and thrive and welcome, hopefully a new day as we get out of the pandemic and get back to something closer to normal. And with that, over to you, Erin.
Amazing. I hope everyone can see me okay. I am just so honored and appreciative of this opportunity to be with all of you today for Wellness Wednesday. As I hope you guys can see my screen here, Soulful Wellness is part of my brand as a consultant. And in Soulful Wellness today, we're going to be exploring not only metaphysics, which is my specialty, but also boundaries, how to set intentional boundaries and how to prevent burnout. So let's get into it. So again, I am Erin Patten, and I am a metaphysical master in a millennial age. And at Erin Patten and Associates, we design divine solutions to modern problems. And before I get into introducing myself, I always like to level set, making sure that everyone's here. We all are coming from meetings or eating something or doing something. We just need to get grounded. Let's get grounded. Let's get on the same page. So I invite you, wherever you are, to just be still. If you're seated in a chair, to just put both of your feet firmly planted onto the ground and just take your palms and just either place them flat on your thighs, or you can lift them up on your thighs and close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, just bring your attention to your breath. And, if it's going fast, if it's going slow, whatever it is, just go with it. But make sure that it's balanced. And by balanced, just breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your nose. Now, as you're breathing, imagine that you're standing upon the peak of a very tall mountain. See it clearly. Imagine you are standing upon the peak of a very tall mountain. And as you look down at the other, smaller peaks and valleys and the homes of those who dare not to climb, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and feel the sting of the cold mountain air in your nostrils. Take another deep breath and feel the sting of the cold mountain air on your skin. And feel the special feeling of being at the peak of this very tall mountain. Now imagine a small spot of bright light appear in your forehead. See this spot in your forehead growing into a beam of light. Now, start to see it projecting itself in front of you into a sharp white beam of light. See it growing a few inches in front of your forehead. Now, see it growing a few feet in front of your forehead. Now, watch it grow 100 feet in front of you. Imagine it growing a few miles in front of you. Now imagine this sharp white beam of light extending all the way into the horizon. Take a deep breath. And now set a short-term goal that you'd like to achieve in the next 3 to 6 months. Something you'd like to accomplish by the end of the year. See it clearly and be specific about what it is that you wish to accomplish in the next 3 to 6 months. As you see it, what are you wearing? Who is there with you? How do you feel? Now hold this goal in your mind and see it being accomplished. Now take a deep breath in. Take a deep breath out. And bring yourself back to this space. Nice. I hope y'all felt that. I certainly did. So our flow for today, we already started with our visualization, which is a great grounding exercise in helping you to achieve whatever it is that you deeply desire within. You have to be able to see it before you can believe it and achieve it. And also what I love to say is the vibration precedes the manifestation, so that vibration is happening in your mind as you see it. And now we're moving into the introduction. So I'm going to give a little bit of brief background about myself, tell y'all who I am, and why I got into metaphysics. And of course, I'm sure you're thinking, what is metaphysics? And we're going to talk about a little bit about that, of course, and allow some question and answer. So if you have questions that come up as I'm speaking, don't hesitate, go ahead and type them in. And my girl Lindsay here is going to help to field the questions and going to pass them along to me so that I can answer them for you. And then we're going to move into an activity because words don't teach. You have to be able to experience, what you're hearing, what you're learning, so that you can embody it and live it and be part of your values. And then after our activity, we're going to share out kind of how you felt after that. And then we're going to end and close with another meditation. But this time I'm going to be playing the sound bowl. So I know you're going to love that. So let's get into it. All right, y'all. So again, I am Erin Patten. I'm a metaphysical master, a serial entrepreneur, and a bit of a global citizen, if you will, in terms of my background and what I've been through and done. And I'm just very excited to share that with you guys. I'm an old soul, and it just shows in who I am and what I do. So this right here that you're looking at is literally a picture of the house that I grew up in, right here in the center of your screen with the bushes coming down the front. I grew up in 3rd Ward, Houston, which has been made famous by the likes of the one and only Beyonce and her sister Solange. And yeah, this is where I grew up. And in my childhood, I certainly was what I like to call the little Miss Sunshine of my family. Both of my parents were doctors, and of course, we had our own, struggles, internally struggles, as many families do. And my mom was really determined to raise the perfect child in a perfect home. And so by the age of 2, I was already enrolled in school. I was taking gymnastics, dance, ice skating lessons. I was studying violin and piano and was a star in beauty pageants, which was definitely a thing in the 90s, especially in Texas. Pretty much, I did everything that I could do from a very young age to please everyone around me. That was my status quo. I just pleased. I was a people pleaser. And at the tender age of 6, my life turned upside down. My sister was tragically murdered in a crime of passion by her girlfriend, and my father was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison on medical fraud charges. And you would think that these traumatic events would destroy a young girl growing up in 3rd Ward, Houston. As I mentioned before, it's a historically Black community with housing projects just a few miles away from big mansions. But my experience was quite the opposite. My mother really encouraged me to forget about all the trauma I was going through. Actually, I was completely mute on what I was going through. And to the outside world, I pretended as if all of it didn't exist. I was just Little Miss Perfect. And in many ways, that moniker, that mask that I wore, I fully embodied. And my extracurricular resume was on point. Like I'm sure many of you, or else you wouldn't be here where you are today. So I graduated at the top of my high school class. I ended up attending University of Texas, as you can see here, graduated with honors, was really into like fashion and being cool, and ended up moving on to New York City. I worked in New York. I lived in New York for many years, working in fashion at the likes of Bergdorf Goodman. I launched the e-commerce business at Lord & Taylor. I worked at InStyle magazine. I was really on my way to being what I dreamed of, the editor-in-chief of Vogue. That was like my dream back then, and it still is my dream in many ways. However, I was still holding on to a lot of this trauma and pain underneath it all. I was performing, I was doing all these great things, but totally, completely empty inside, like completely unfulfilled. And I thought that fulfillment would come with more accolades, of course. So I ended up attending Harvard. I think you all might have heard of this place. And I got my master's in business there. I got my master's in public policy there at the Kennedy School of Government. And I just continued to achieve. I traveled all around the world. I visited over 20 countries. I used to live in Brazil. And it was just an opportunity for me to just find myself, if you will, when I was always there. I just was looking for myself everywhere else. And actually, my path from Harvard led me to Detroit. And Detroit, as you guys know, has been going through, or many of you may know, has been going through a re-emergence. And at that time, especially, Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan had invested in the city. All these great people were investing in the city from all over the world. And I wanted to be a part of that, almost like a gold rush, if you will, kind of coming in, pioneering, and changing up the landscape. But when I landed in that city, first of all, no one cared about my credentials, no one cared about my background, and I was really forced to confront myself. At that time, I was going through a lot with my family. My father passed away. One of my best friends was murdered on a vacation in Jamaica where I was supposed to be with her. And it was just all of these events were happening in my life where I was supposed to be succeeding and making lots of money and just being on top of the world. And it was like, no, that wasn't my existence at all. And I had to do some soul searching. I had to look at myself. I had to confront myself, and my life started to change and shift. I started to eat differently. I started to fast. I started to explore different types of religious traditions, spiritual traditions, and that led me to wanting to create my own company. And that first company actually was a clean beauty brand called Deo. And DEO is an acronym for Defy All Odds. I felt at that time that I had to, kind of push through boundaries, push through walls to get to this place of being fulfilled, of being happy. And that's exactly what I had to do in shifting my mindset and getting support from sources like, therapists and teachers and soul readers and all of these people who really could see in me what I couldn't see in myself. And that is really where my metaphysical journey began. And so we're going to just get a little bit into what metaphysics is, and I can continue to share kind of how my story weaves a little bit more into that. And so what metaphysics is you can break it down, the etymology of the word. Meta, the Greek is Greek, and it comes from Greek roots, and it means to go above or beyond. So think of words like metamorphosis. So morph means to change, and meta is like above change, like it goes from a caterpillar to a butterfly, a completely different form. It takes on a different form. It creates a new dimension. It goes from crawling to flying. Those are two crazy changes. And so think about the meta aspect. And the physics is exactly how we understand physics to be. It's the physical world, the three-dimensional plane that we live in, all the tactile things that we explore in this, what I call the spacesuit of a human body. And when you put those two words together, meta and physics, it means to just simply go above and beyond our three-dimensional plane to access the multi-dimensional nature of our true being. We are true beings that are multi-dimensional and activating the divine that's within us, the divine that connects us to our greater power, our greater source. Some like to call it God, Allah. However, it is the source that gives us life and being. And as I was going through my changes, this is what I came to know about myself. And this is why I was so inspired to share it with others. And not only share it with others in truth and in individual capacities, but in business. And so that kind of brings us to where we are today, and how I'm even here today, because I believe that metaphysics, what we would generally separate from the workplace, what we would check at the door, I want to bring it all the way in. Actually, I want to bust through the door with it. And so that's why metaphysics I want to show you how metaphysics is important to organizations today for a few different reasons. The first is, and Harvard Business Review said it, so if HBR says it's, then it's facts, right? So self-awareness enables employees to see themselves more clearly, period. Having more self-awareness, which essentially is a higher consciousness, allows us to be more confident. It allows us to be more creative, collaborative, which ultimately leads to sounder decisions. And on top of that, these studies were backed up by Gallup, very reputable source in the game, a global study that showed that employees' need for high well-being increases their ability to perform. And not only that, 48% of folks that have low engagement and low well-being will leave the company. So it's also about retention. It's also about keeping people close to you, working for you, and happy working with you. And of course, what we most care about in business are outcomes. Let's look at the bottom line. I know how some people think. It's just like, I just want to see the numbers. Well, let me just show you. More effective leaders with more satisfied employees co-create a more profitable bottom line, period. So, that's facts from Gallup studies that well-being directly affects business outcomes. And so let's look at that a little bit deeper as it relates specifically to our conversation today. And this is a term that I like to use in terms of how we address issues within organization is organizational dis-ease. We like to use the word disease and think that you have this ailment and apply labels to it and prescriptions, and all that is great. However, fundamentally, disease is caused by dis-ease in the body. When you're not at ease, when you're not at peace, there's going to be some disruptions. So that's dis-ease. And for us, many of us in this pandemic, post-pandemic, we burnt out. Like we all the way burnt out. And so we want to make sure that we are pouring into ourselves. And, I was talking with Lindsay earlier and a few of your colleagues before this conversation around how the organization is trying to create more wellness opportunities. But even outside of work, we know we have access to therapists. We know we can go to yoga. We know we can go to meditation. It's literally one click away on YouTube. But many of us don't have the time, or we don't make the time, or we lack the motivation. And so that contributes to our burnout. And additionally with that, no one size fits all. So what may work for your girlfriend or your homeboy or your partner or your spouse, it doesn't work for you. And that's okay, because each of us on this planet, like in this entire universe, we're all unique creatures and beings. So of course there's going to be diversity across what we need, and you have to find what works for you. And on top of that, we are all experiencing the boundary issue. Like there are no boundaries, like myself included. I have a 1-year-old son. I also am the caretaker for my mom. So I'm in this house working, talking to him, talking to my mom, trying to direct things while on calls. It's a lot, let's just be real. And the loss of our work normalcy, like being in our confined quarters, like focus, like it's gone, like forget about it. And so we really have to wake up to the fact that change is here. And it's not, and we have to make changes within too to adjust and adapt to this new paradigm. And so to give you guys a little bit more background of the consultancy and what I do, just very briefly, it's just meta business. So we are bringing divine interventions into business. And we start really and truly by just assessing the soul of the organization, the individuals, the end consumer, everyone that's involved in the chain of the organization. Because if you don't look at the whole, you can't be able to solve, the little details. That's why it's called holistic. And then we move from that assessment to then the strategic planning, which combines all the modern technologies and tools and data with very ancient, tried and true practices. There are laws of the universe, just like laws of gravity. You can't teach that, it just is. That you have to be able to bring into, the work that we do to ensure that we are activating our greatest potential. And once we kind of go through that process, then we kind of look at what's working, what's not working, find the balance, and then celebrate, because you always got to celebrate your wins. So now we're going to get into the metaphysics, which is the best part, my favorite part, and really explore the soul within. And I use the word soul without the U because soul, as we know in Latin and Romance languages, represents sun. And there is really and truly a sun that lives within us, because as above, so below, as without, so within. And we see the sun every day. It gives us life and being. Why wouldn't we believe that we have a sun within that gives us life and being? The sun is our soul. The sun is our soul within us. And it is truly who we are. Yet we get disconnected from it in our day-to-day life. And this is the time, this is the now to reconnect with that soul within you and understand the metaphysics of who you really are. So let's talk about it. What are you? And I love to also bring these images into it. As you can see in that previous image, the woman had the beautiful sun in her and had the seat of her soul at her solar plexus. And as you can see here, this beautiful image of the Taurus woman or Taurus man, which is what Leonardo da Vinci made with the man with his arms going like this. That's called like the Taurus man. And so this Taurus woman is just such a beautiful depiction of all that is creation in human form. So you can see literally the life force field coming through her, through the sun, and coming out of her, into the water, back into the earth. And essentially what this represents is the quantum force field of the ever-evolving metaphysical substance that is part of our being. As I mentioned before, meta means to go above, and physics is the physical plane. So when you bring that together, that quantum force field of this multidimensional substance enables us to be conscious beings of light. We are literally light beings in these human bodies with the ability to connect to, activate, and integrate divine intelligence. and create your own reality. So as you're doing this divine work and connecting with your divinity, you are a creator. You are a god, a goddess. And I know it's hard for some people to receive that, but it's the truth. You know, if you're connected to God, what makes you not a god? If you're connected to God, what makes you not a goddess? And so really and truly, we have these abilities to activate something that's so rich and that's so unique to being a human being is consciousness. Consciousness in itself is our greatest gift, and it is our divinity. And just to break it down even more scientifically, it is called the human biofield. And it is essentially like the Holy Spirit that we talk about in church, in Christianity, or in other spiritual traditions, is this energy field. Other names include the Merkaba, the aura. A lot of people talk about, ooh, your aura. Like that is it. It's your biofield or the Sri Yantra. And so as you see here, there are two distinct auric fields that operate. I mean, there's certainly more, but just for this purposes, we have the heart field. So the heart field is our most powerful energetic field, and that is what gives us life and meaning and purpose to our being. And on the outside of that, you can see this other vortex that encompasses our entire body. And as you can see, it's a multi-dimensional figure with a vortex at its center. And that vortex, in that vortex, is actually where we connect with our source, where we connect with our God, Allah, or however you call your supreme being. That is our connection. It comes directly into that vortex, and it animates and gives life to our being. And what's so important about this, because when we talked about it, you saw that heart center, the auric field that goes around that heart center. From that heart emanates an extremely powerful energetic field. And we love science, we love data, we love the logic to go with this. So let's bring it in here. So it is scientifically been measured, the heart energetic field, to go as far as 5 miles from your heart. So imagine, you always talk about this people, like when someone's walking into the room and you feel their energy, or someone walks into the room and you're like, ooh, I don't feel that energy, like I don't like that energy. That is because you are engaging energetically with your force field, with your auric fields. And this electromagnetic frequency, because it is electric, arcs out from your heart and back into a donut shape. So imagine it's like a big donut around you. And in these energy fields, every living being has this. So literally every insect, every tree, flower, every living thing has this auric field. And it is essentially the key to everything, because our entire life and being is created by and from this place. And also, essentially, this is another, what I love figure of how the auric field works. And it has actually the tetrahedral structures. So you can see there's the tetrahedral structure that goes up as above, and the tetrahedral structure that goes down as below, because we are directly channeling our source from above, and then we are directly connected to Earth with our physical bodies, our human being bodies, as below. And that's what that means. And it looks very similar to the Star of David. So imagine that Star of David, that's exactly what the structure is, except multidimensional around our bodies. And there's so many different meridians and energetic points. I'm sure many of you may have heard of chakras. So these chakras and meridians, these energetic fields connect our aura so that we can receive all that great energy from the cosmos, the universe around us, to animate and give life and breath to our bodies. And why this power is so important, and why compassion and love is so important, is because it comes from our heart. It comes from our heart center. So, you know, we always are talking about self-love, love yourself, give yourself love, self-care, all this. It's not just mumbo jumbo. It's not just woo-woo. We're not just trying to woo-woo here. We are trying, this is science. This is science. From your heart center, it gives you power. And by understanding and learning the power of this toroidal energy, we can achieve clarity and deeper connection, not only with ourselves, but with other people. Now that's the key. You want to be able to not only get along with yourself, but we have to live and breathe and move in a world with millions of other people at work, at home, in our families. And we already know that can be challenging. And so we can use this connection to understand our soul's wisdom. By connecting with our heart energy and our heart center, we can connect with our soul and guiding us to who we truly are. And this intuitive, energetic heart is also known as our inner voice. You know, that little voice, that little on your shoulder that tells you what to do or tells you what not to do. That voice grows stronger. That whisper gets a little bit louder as you connect to that heart center, and it sends information to our brain so that we can act out our purpose and act in alignment with our true, authentic voice and being. And with that, I just want to stop it there because I know I threw a lot out there. I want to make sure people have a chance to come in with questions. So Lindsay, I'll take it over to you. And maybe we can stop sharing too, so we can kind of see each other and answer questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erin. This is incredible. I'm relaxed and also like really curious as well. So thanks for sharing all of that. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We do have one question around your lived experience and your trauma and your childhood, and curious, what did you find was the best method for you to process those events?
Ooh, a lot of conversations for me. I had to talk about it because, as I mentioned to you guys before, it didn't exist in my family. Like, to this day, we don't even mention my sister's name to this day. And we don't talk about what my dad went through. He came back home and it was almost just like, Daddy's home. Like, he just came back home. And so I literally just needed to talk about it. And so I spent a lot of time talking, crying, affirming myself, because I, for some reason, felt guilty. I felt a lot of shame. I felt guilt and shame. Those were the two biggest feelings that I had about my life. And then, so everything else that I experienced was guilt and shame. And so I had to release that guilt and release that shame, and it came through very intentional therapy sessions, through healing sessions. I believe Andy talked about working with soul readers. I work with soul readers to help me see the truth of who I am. And once you're able to know who you are, like I talked about before, we're multidimensional beings. In many ways, we've chosen this experience. We've chosen to come here to learn these lessons so that we may ascend. And once I started to grasp that, once I started to overstand and understand that concept about myself, that I'm divine, that these experiences actually don't define me, but they empower me, then I was able to come into healing. But first, I had to cry and talk about it a lot.
Yeah, that processing is so important, and there's not sometimes a destination for that, or you don't know what the destination is when you start to process.
Yeah.
Another question came in. Are there techniques that you use to get in touch with your inner voice or your heart? How do you harness that? Are there certain techniques that you use, or is that going to be in the next section of the talk?
We're going to talk about it next, but I will tell you straight up and down, meditate. Meditate, meditate, meditate. There is no faster way to get to your inner voice than to still your mind, still the body. We are overstimulated in our world. We are constantly on our computers. We're constantly on our phones. We're driving, we're talking, we're eating, we're watching TV. We are completely distracted, and taking in everyone else's programming, taking in everyone else's thoughts and beliefs, and not taking enough time to sit with our own. Sit by yourself. Go walk in nature by yourself. Literally be by yourself. You're not going to hear it. I mean, I shouldn't say you're not. I shouldn't say that, because some people, it can happen like this. For me, it didn't happen like that. But I would say it can happen instantaneously. It can happen over many years. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself in the process, because that is also the key, is that we are high achievers. We expect quick results, if not quick results, tangible results. And this isn't tangible, this is intangible. Everything about this journey is non-physical. It's non-physical, and in our physical being, we have to embrace the non-physical, and that can be hard to grasp for some in the beginning. However, just to answer that question real quick, meditate.
All right, and then I want to leave enough time to be, oh, and here's my daughter Millie. Everybody at Frog knows Millie. Hi.
Hey, Millie.
She makes appearances in my calls unplanned. So one more question before we move into the next section here, because I think you'll address some of the questions around setting boundaries.
Yeah.
What do you think are the biggest points of resistance that you see in here in corporate and kind of the corporate space as it relates to boundary setting and these types of practices, bringing them into the corporate setting? What are some of the resistance points you hear?
Yeah, the resistance is that there's a few. And I believe one of the most pressing ones is the political correctness of it. You know, there is this idea that church and state, church and business are separate, but this is not quite the church. You know, this is our reality. This is it. You know, this is why we're on this planet, is to connect with source and to access our divine and to create, you know, our most imaginable goals and desires for ourselves. And to have to check that at the door, it's the antithesis of what we, our human beings, are meant to be doing on this planet, which why so many of us are burnt out, which why so many of us are lost, which why I suffered for so many years of what am I doing? Why am I so unfulfilled? And I'm getting all these accolades and checking all these boxes. So the biggest, I believe, hurdle is the political correctness of it. Can we talk about spirituality in the boardroom? Can we talk about it in our managers meetings? Can we talk about it at lunch and not be offended and be open and be compassionate? That's the key, you know. And then I believe, second of all, it's going to take a little of a pause, which I believe is difficult in business settings. We're on a go, go, go. Let's get up, you know. We're talking about, you know, Andy working from different time zones and things like that. Like, you got to get up and work. But this kind of work actually requires you to be still, to be quiet, to stop working. And that also goes against what is best practice in business, and that's to think and analyze and reflect and do all these things. And when in reality, in the non-physical and in this kind of work, less is more. You know, the sages say, do nothing and accomplish everything. Can you imagine if you go into your job and you tell your boss, I'm not gonna do nothing today? Like, what? Like, that's funny, for real. But truly, that is how this works. And so these are some of the hurdles, is that a lot of the laws of the universe and a lot of the laws of spirituality completely contradict the laws of the workplace.
Thank you. Yes, that is funny. Sometimes I feel that way. It would be better for everyone if I did nothing today. So let's get in. Many of the questions that are coming in are around, you know, kind of some tangible, you know, techniques to set boundaries and how to overcome the guilt associated with setting boundaries. And so I know you're going to get into that next. So why don't you take it forward there? And then if we have time for more questions at the end, we can do that, or we can post them for responses to follow up.
Yes, and I'll actually move very quickly through this activity because I believe it's actually going to be shared out with all the attendees and folks that couldn't attend. So don't fret, you know, take your time to kind of walk through this with me, but then also take more time later to do it on your own. And so what we're going to focus on now is the energy wheel. And very simply, where your focus goes, energy flows. And where your focus flows, energy goes. Both in the same. So first of all, we're going to kind of look at this energy allocation. And so this is a great tool, both to, you know, engage the left brain, the logic brain, which I know a lot of you guys are really good analytical people, and also the right brain, the very creative, experiential part of your being. So the first part we're going to talk about is the left side of the brain. Energy allocation. There are 168 hours in 1 week. So you're going to take a few minutes, and I'm probably just going to give you like a few seconds here, but very quickly kind of jot down, if you can, how many hours you spend working, how many hours you spend a week sleeping. You kind of just like, just average it. Like if it's 6 hours per day, 6 on 7, okay, like kind of just do that in your mind and kind of go through how much time do you spend with family, how much time do you spend on your spiritual self, how much time do you spend with your community, exercising, reading to develop yourself, cooking, eating, TV. Go ahead and add that up for a little bit. And keep in mind that if there are some categories here that don't align with you or don't resonate with you, go ahead and write other ones in the other section at the bottom. And as you're doing that, I'm sure you're kind of getting a sense of, how you're feeling about how you're spending your time. You're probably looking at this like, oh my God, like I spend so much time working, or I spend so little time sleeping. And start to just assess as you're going through this exercise, how you are feeling about the time you're spending. Are you happy about it? Are you satisfied? Are you moderately satisfied, dissatisfied? Think about that as you're kind of jotting this down. And really start to imagine, like, what are some of the things you like to see change? Would you like to be cooking, eating more? Would you like to be spending more time with your family? Just start to think about that, and also kind of see how many hours you have left over. So once you kind of add it up, make sure everything equals 168 at the bottom, so you can really see how you're allocating your time. So now, after you've done that first round of energy allocation and you're starting to see, ooh, like I'm spending a lot of time doing this and I would rather be doing this, we're going to do the same exercise, now focused on those activities that you actually would like to be doing more of, or see yourself doing more of. You may not be doing it now even. So in this way, you're going to sort of like rejigger and restructure your first round of energy allocation. So you're going to look at like, how much time do I really want to be working a day? How much time do I need to be sleeping? How much time do I want to be spending with my family? How much time do I need to be exercising in the week? And start to kind of jot that out and make sure again that the total equals 168, because the key is to make sure that you're using up all those hours, or you're able to see if you have some free time. Because if you're not using up all those hours, and that gives you a chance to kind of see, okay, I have like 20 hours, extra hours that I'm not doing anything. And then that can help you start to imagine, what can I be doing in those free moments? Because remember, when we talked about burnout earlier in today's presentation, it was all about time, not having the time. So this is an exercise to help you actually see your time allotment, actually see your time allocation. Where do you have time? Okay. And so now that you've at least started to think more about what you would like to invite into your life, this is the work. This is the wheel, the energy wheel. When we take all that logic and we add a creative, experiential lens to it. So now that you know the activities you would like to amplify in your life, let's get a sense of what that feels like, because as we talked about before in the metaphysics of who we are, our being is animated with electromagnetic force field. It's electricity flowing through our bodies, which gives us emotions, which gives us feelings. And so feelings are really what resonate with us and touch us on a deeper level than just words. Because at the end of the day, words don't teach. Experiences teach. Feelings teach. Emotions teach. So as you're figuring out what you want to invite into your life, go ahead and put all of those things in the center of your circle. For me, examples, I love to cook at home. don't necessarily prioritize it, but when I do, I feel wealthy because health to me is wealth. You know, when I get up early in the morning, whether it's 4:30, 5, 6, you know, I feel at peace. Like I get a chance to do my meditation, I get to journal, I get to read, and I feel so much more at peace. So really, as you put in your things that you want to invite in your life, attach a one-word feeling associated with it. And if you're having trouble trying to find those things that you would like to invite in your life, think about those things that you don't want in your life, or think about those things that you want to limit in your life. For example, for me, you know, it's like fast foods, working too much. So for me, when I eat fast foods, I feel guilty. You feel fat, you feel sluggish, you feel all those negative energies, and that's what I want to limit in my life. Sometimes it's great. I love a good mozzarella stick, but at the end of the day, what kind of value is it adding to me? Probably not much. So I want to limit that in my life. Also, when I'm working too much, I don't get to spend time with my son. I don't get to spend time with my mom. You know, I'm feeling disconnected from the world. I feel frustrated. I feel drained. And so attach also a one-word feeling to those activities or those things in your life that you want to limit or eliminate. And as you're doing that, I just want to talk through why the energy wheel and attaching those emotions to your goals is so important. Because there is a major difference between setting intentions and setting goals. And let's be real, let's be clear about it. So goal setting is really great because it helps us to see the future. Exactly what we did in our visualization exercise at the beginning of this conversation. We started to visualize what we wanted to accomplish by the end of the year. We could see it, we could smell it, we could taste it. However, sometimes in this mindset, it creates a bit of a tension because we have this focus, this emphasis on something in the future, preventing us from being present, preventing us from being in the now, celebrating our successes and experiences that we have now. And sometimes when we don't reach that goal, whether it's a quantitative goal for work, hitting a metric, hitting a profit goal, whatever it is, sales goal, if we don't hit it, we sometimes get a sense of failure. And that sense of failure does not serve us, and activating our purpose, living in our purpose, and realizing our dreams, which is why intentions and more emotion-based setting is so important, because as you're setting and living in your attention, you're really allowed to focus on who you are in the moment. You can recognize and live those values. Like I mentioned before, I want to be with my family. I want to have peace. So if I'm not being with my family, how can I still make sure I have peace in this day? You know what, let me go sit in the bathroom for a second, close my eyes and just breathe. If that's all it takes, I just want to have a moment of peace. So then when you're not able to hit those goals and hit those targets, you're at least activating that same emotion in a different form. And when you're doing this, you are raising your emotional energy, which we talked about before. When you raise that heart energy, that heart power, you have the ability to also be more physically energized, more present, more aware, more conscious. And then these intentions help to provide a roadmap for how to live out each day. You want to make sure that, you be with your family, you eat healthy, you do all these things, but also you want to make sure, on the same token, you have peace. You feel wealthy, you feel healthy. You have, you feel like you're activating some of your genius. So this is a roadmap to get through each day. Whatever form it may take, you're still getting those same emotions. And essentially, as you're doing that, you are inspired and motivated to achieve your purpose. So that goal you set, you're more likely to get there because you're just vibing. You're vibing, you're flowing, you're having that good energy. And when you have those good vibes, remember, like I said at the very beginning, your vibration precedes your manifestation. You have to have that good vibration of success. You have to have that good vibration of happiness to achieve that which you want to have in your life. And so I also kind of want to lead with this quote from the Upanishads, which is this ancient Vedic text, this ancient Indian text. Shout out to all the people in India. We talked about them earlier in the event. This is from their ancient scriptures. And it reads, "You are what your deepest desire is. As your desire is, so is your intention. As your intention is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny. Y'all get that? So whatever your deepest desire is, set an intention. Your intention activates your wills and your actions, which ultimately determines your destiny. So go ahead, make those intentions real, make them tangible, feel them in your heart, and you have no choice but to see it manifest. And so with that, I would love for Lindsay to hop back on. I think, Lorenzo, if you can stop sharing the screen so the folks can see us talking here and we can hear from our audience about how that resonated with them. I don't know, Lindsay, if you have any insights of how that resonated with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Erin. That's a really great tool. Oftentimes we will refer to it at Frog as energy gainers and drainers.
Oh.
So it's kind of thinking about, when you think about your job and your role at Frog, where do you gain the most energy? What do you prioritize at the top of your list because you want to? And then what do you put off and keep putting off and procrastinate on? And that can often tell us a lot about what types of roles, will be more fulfilling than draining. So thank you for sharing that. The circle. I had one thought when you were sharing that, which is a reminder to kind of extend grace to your fellow colleagues in Vent and make sure that you understand that everybody's circle looks different. Everybody's circle is different. They're going to put different things in their circle depending on their lived experiences and their current life situation. And people might be taking things out of their circle and putting other things in, depending on what's going on in their life. So be mindful of that. Be gentle. Extend grace. We have probably time for one more question, Erin. And so let me ask this: how do we deal with guilt around setting boundaries and sticking to them? So it's kind of in the same vein of like managing boundaries and at work, if we have to make trade-offs to maintain our boundaries, what are some strategies for managing the guilt through that, if there is guilt, or how do you push back?
That hit me so deep. Let me just say that hit me so deep because I was just there. And I know exactly where they're coming from because, as I mentioned before in my story, I was the consummate people pleaser. I wanted to make people happy. And I believe a lot of us have that same desire. However, to overcome that guilt, you must love yourself more than anyone else in this world. You must love yourself. And that is how you set those boundaries. And the best way to do that is affirmations, to affirm yourself. Because when we say yes, when we can't say no, and we feel guilty about it, we are neglecting ourselves. We're not hurting anybody else. Ain't nobody mad at us when we're telling them yes and we can't sleep at night. So we have to look out for ourselves. Because also think about it like this. When you're not saying no, you are enabling that person to continue to use or abuse that relationship. You are enabling it. So in many ways, you have to be the courageous one to stand up and stop that force, almost that negative force of use and abuse. And it does take time. The guilty feelings will take time to go away if that's how you're feeling. If you're feeling that guilt and that shame about it, it takes time. However, in your affirmations of love for yourself, acknowledge that I'm doing what's best for me. I need my space. I need my time. I need my sleep. I need my peace. You have to affirm that. And that is the easiest way to get over that guilt. And trust me, I feel you. I want to always be there for people. It's very hard for me to say no, but no is a complete sentence. No is a complete sentence. You don't need to explain. You don't need to rationalize. No is a complete sentence. It's okay to say no. And really, you have to receive that, accept that, be in that, sit in that. And it takes a little time.
Thanks so much, Erin. We are at the top of the hour, and I just want to say again, thank you so much for spending time with us, for sharing your experience, for sharing your tools. And we do have a few more questions. Maybe we'll send those over to you if you want to answer them, and then we can share those responses back out to our colleagues. And yeah, we appreciate this, and I hope everyone has been able to carve out some time to explore that exercise and, you know, find your meditation moments. So thank you very much, Erin.
You guys.
And hopefully we'll see you around more.
Yes, this is not the last. I love it here. Thank you guys. Again, I'm honored. I am humbled. And this completes our session for today. So may you all go in love and compassion, equanimity onto your journeys. It's been a blessing. Peace. Bye, guys.